is to provide evidence for policy and economic decisions through macroeconomic modeling in Nigeria. To achieve this, we undertake various activities like trainings, webinar series. This is an example of the webinar series we have. And as part of what we do, we try to create an enabling environment for the building of relevant macroeconomic models for Nigeria. We also promote the development of education of macroeconomic modelers. We provide a forum for the exchange of ideas, macroeconomic modeling, advancement, and professional experiences. And lastly, we try to foster an improved understanding of macroeconomic related issues by all interested parties. And there are different categories of membership. We have individual as well as corporate members. We have partners like the NES is Nigeria Economic Society, SIA, PILAF, the National Bureau of Statistics, ADSR, and the CDN. Before we call upon the facilitator, I'll just, I believe we all know the topic for discussion today, which has to do with macro modeling as well as artificial intelligence. As we all know it, AI has come to stay. It's the trend now, and there is no going back. This is the present as well as the future of the world. And macroeconomic modeling is not left out. As a matter of fact, for those of us in research here in academics, we all know that some journals have started, asking or requesting that researchers should acknowledge where the use of AI was done in their research, and a lot of researchers have started acknowledging various extents to which AI was used in the course of their research. Also, donor organizations and other institutions require when they bring out calls for applications for grants, they also request that if AI was used, then the quantum, the volume, or the specific aspect of your work which AI was used, should be specified, and also to what extent. So AI has come to stay, but we must also remember that it should be ethically used. So I'm going to read a brief citation of the speaker for today, who is no other than Dr. Ahamwefula Ephraim Ogbonna. Is currently a lecturer in the Department of Statistics, precisely the Economic and Financial Unit at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. And he holds a BSc, Master's, as well as a PhD degree in statistics. And in the process of doing this, he has acquired prerequisite knowledge in the rudiments of statistics, both theoretical and empirical. He's a research fellow at the Center for Econometrics and Allied Research, SIA, also based at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. And with over 10 years research experience working with renowned statisticians and economists. Under SIA platform, which he joined in 2015, he has participated in the macroeconomic modeling of the Nigerian economy that provides evidence-based policy options to the Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC, of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And this helps to aid their policy decisions, and also he has co-facilitated trainings of postgraduate students, academics, and professionals in the use of econometric tools, as well as statistical softwares for empirical research analysis. Dr. Ogbonna has also been actively involved in the Project Link meeting for the period between 2015 and 2018, where he has reported Nigeria's economic outlook annually, having empirically examined and forecasted key macroeconomic fundamentals for the years under review. As a young researcher, Dr. Ogbonna's research focuses on empirical application of recent econometric methodologies. He has interest in programming with diverse software programs to solve analytical and numeric problems, with demonstrated proficiency in the use of statistical programming softwares. He has several publications in well-indexed and highly cited journals. As of May 2025, is highly ranked both in Nigeria and Africa according to RIPEC, IGES ranking of economists based on its economic-related publications. On this note, I would like to welcome Dr. Ogbonna to make his presentation, and we should take no more than 30 minutes to enable, between 25 and 30 minutes to enable adequate time for questions and answers. Thank you very much, and thank you all again for joining this session, and I hope you have a good time here. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Ogbonna, over to you. You can share your screen. Dr. Ogbonna. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon. We can hear you loud and clear, Dr. Ogbonna.
Okay. Sorry for joining in a bit late. Some funny things just happened with my own system. It logged me out. I was trying to connect back, so I had to quickly rush into Prof's office to make use of Prof's system. So I'll be presenting from Prof's system. I want to use this as an opportunity to appreciate the NAMM executive for giving me the privilege to make this presentation. For me, it's a way for us to rub minds together. It's not a perfect work, but just some thoughts from my search on in the literature of what is currently obtainable in the research world. So I'll be working or discussing the issues around bridging econometrics and artificial intelligence in macroeconomic modeling, new approaches for improved forecasting performance. So I will just provide some little background and then try to tweak our thinking faculty as to what best suits the research world when it comes to econometrics, macroeconometric modeling, and integration of AI. So by way of introduction, I want to look at the concepts of econometrics, macroeconometrics, and machine learning, which we all know have their traditional focus from separate disciplines, having their own objectives and their methodologies, and each of them having their own strengths. Okay, with their strengths, they also have some weaknesses, which we will tend to look at in the course of this presentation. Now, econometrics primarily concerns itself with the explanation of economic relationship and tries to uncover causal effects, while machine learning focuses on prediction and pattern recognition. But in the advent of big data, the advent of the kind of data that we have in this current era, there is a kind of increase in complexity of economic problems, which have created the need to look for more flexible or robust methods of analyzing economic phenomena and making projections. And on the basis of that, we now start talking about integrating the two approaches, the macroeconometric modeling as well as artificial intelligence. Today, there are several researchers working towards trying to bring about the combination of these two approaches to modeling in macroeconometrics. Now, the central question we have to deal with revolves around this main theme. How can we improve forecast performance in an increasingly complex and data-rich economic environment? So we look at the reason why we have to look at that question. Traditional macroeconometric models are theory-driven and they are policy relevant. Now, AI and a sub of it, the machine learning, strong predictive power. It has strong predictive power, but it's limited interpretability. And current stance of the modern economy is that there is high volatility. Relationships are not linear as assumed under the macroeconometric models, and there are several interconnectedness that needs to be considered. So first, we'll look at some features of the macroeconometric models or methodology. The first, we want to look at macroeconometric model as being fundamentally explanatory. So the objective there is to understand the underlying structure of the relationship that exists between or among economic variables, and to identify, in a way, the causal effects one has on the other. So this usually is done, the process is done by testing hypotheses after specifying models and estimating parameters of the model. So we draw inference from the relationships that we are trying to examine. The idea is to see if there is a causal relationship between economic variables. Now, the major thing is that macroeconometric models seek to answer questions that has to do with impact. Okay, what's the effect of interest rate on inflation? How does trade influence economic growth, and so on? So macroeconometric models tend to follow structured framework. Okay, so on that basis, we can say that macroeconometric model rely on economic theory. So once we have an economic theory, we have some level of a starting point for macroeconometric modeling, because it is heavily dependent on economic theories. Now, the theoretical background gives macroeconometric models strong interpretability because there's already existing theory. Now, by the time we are conducting macroeconometric modeling, we are able to either validate the stance of that theory or to refute the stance of that theory, given what we have on in terms of the data availability. And on the basis of that, because there's an existing theory, the result or the output can be interpreted quite easily, because before we observe the data, we already have a priori expectations. So do those a priori expectations truly stand, or they are sensitive to the region or the data that was actually used? Now, the estimated parameters from macroeconometric models have clear economic meaning, so it makes them useful for policy analysis and decision making. Now, macroeconometric models emphasize most times on linear relationship and structured dynamics. So sometimes when we have issues of non-linearity, we often want to look at ways of linearizing the relationships so that we can apply our conventional macroeconometric models. Now, given that it has some policy relevance, it has some limitations, and those limitations can be listed as such. Okay, so you have structural instability, especially during crisis, because macroeconomic models have tend to draw information from the data that is being used to estimate. But what happens when you no longer have, when the data you want to predict is outside the period where you have used for the estimation? Again, the assumption of linearity most often time fails, especially when you have complex non-linear interaction present in real-world data. Real-world data will not always present linear functional forms. Now, there may be sometimes macroeconometric model may miss important features, okay, especially when you are dealing with large or unstructured data sets. So that's one key shortfall of the macroeconomic model. So most recent studies try to look at, okay, some exploratory data analysis to try to pinpoint what some of these salient data features could be so that they can be incorporated. But yet, that may not actually give the full picture of what the data generating process of the for the economic phenomenon is truly. So it forms kind of underrepresents the true stance of this economic phenomenon in a way. But we cannot throw it away because it has its own advantages. We take, for example, a model that explains about 80% of the variation in our variable of interest, leaving 20% unexplained. This is going to have an effect because we are saying we don't have explanation for the remaining 20%. Suppose the data dynamics that is supposed to have been captured by that 20% shows up in future. How will our macroeconometric model be able to capture that? So in that regard, macroeconometric model tends to fall short with that respect to that. But you and I will agree that most times when researchers have modeled using macroeconometric model and you see 80% explanation of the variation in the dependent variable, you tend to say, oh, it's a good model. And then you say, yes, this model has performed very well. But whereas that performance may actually not speak to reality. So that is a shortfall for macroeconometric model. When there is no clear theoretical structure, macroeconometric models may struggle to provide meaningful explanation. Now, we take the other school of thought or the other aspects, the machine learning, the artificial intelligence. So I focus more on machine learning because as a subset of artificial intelligence, because that is most prominent amongst researchers now. Now, machine learning on its own, rather than being explanatory, is more of a predictive methodology. And the main goal of the machine learning methodology is to build models that can generate accurate prediction. So the accuracy of the prediction is the key driver for, or the key goal for machine learning. So it may not often look at any theoretical assumptions. So machine learning emphasizes performance in forecasting or classification rather than causal relationship. For macroeconometric model, they tend to look more on causal relationship. Now, machine learning algorithms rely on data-driven algorithm, and that is why in machine learning we often want to look at the data that we have at hand and we split it into different portions. We use a particular one portion to train the data, to train the model, and then test the model using another portion, and then thereafter try to validate that model. Now, when we do this, we're actually trying to see how the dynamics of the data can be fully captured. So while we train the data and then we test the data on a different sample, is to be able to see whether there is consistency, right? Or possibly the model has already memorized the dynamics in the trained data interval and is not able to replicate same when you have data outside the sample that was used. Now, common techniques under machine learning, you have the decision tree, the random forest, gradient boosting, and deep learning, such as a neural network. Now, machine learning excels in handling high-dimensional data. We are currently in the advent of big data, where you have high velocity, high variability of data. So most econometric models may not be able to handle such high-dimensional data, especially when some of these data are not even in structured form. So machine learning or AI-based models tend to have an upper hand in that regard, providing us more options to be able to get data to explain or to predict economic phenomena. So it's highly flexible in incorporating different data types, from text to images to several real-time indicators. Now, machine learning has this capability, or we say model adaptability, such that you can train the model and try as much as possible to continue to improve upon that model until a satisfactory predictive accuracy is achieved. Under machine learning, you have a concept known as assembly method, where you would have experimented with multiple models and then try to combine the performances of this model to improve the general performance of the forecasting of the economic variable of interest. Now, but machine learning is not without its own disadvantages. One, a major concern is that of interpretability. Because most of machine learning-based models are operating under the black box mechanism, it makes it difficult to explain how these predictions are generated. So one will want to look at or further probe how this can be solved, because it's problematic in the policy context where transparency is most essential. Now, machine learning lacks strong theoretical foundation, meaning that predictions may not align with economic reasoning. So that is one shortfall, again, for machine learning algorithm. Now, there is risk of overfitting, particularly when the model are too complex relative to the available data. So you may run into the risk of overfitting. Now, the focus of machine learning is on prediction, and it does not address causal relationship. So it identifies pattern, but on its own may not be able to explain why those patterns actually exist. Now, what is the key distinction between our macroeconometric models and the machine learning-based model? We have a key distinction, and that central difference is in their objectives. Macroeconometric models aim to uncover the true underlying structure of the relationships between or among economic variables, while machine learning aims to achieve predictive accuracy. How precise is our prediction about our variable of interest? So the goals are related, but they are not identical. The final, what we actually, when we do macroeconomic, we see forecasts, okay? But the way these things are done under macroeconometric model and under the machine learning stances are a bit different. Now, a model with strong predictive power does not necessarily provide meaningful explanation. That's from the machine learning perspective. A model with strong explanatory power may not also perform well in terms of prediction. That's from the perspective of macroeconometrics. Okay, so you have two different stances. One model has strong predictive power, but that doesn't necessarily translate to giving meaningful explanation as to how that prediction comes about. The other one, macroeconometric model, has strong predictive explanatory power, is able to explain to a high level what the variation that occurs in the dependent variable of interest. But when we go outside the period that was used for estimation or the explanation of that variable, we have a shortfall. So macroeconometric model may not perform that well in prediction. So the key thing there is recognizing this distinction, okay, for selecting appropriate methodology. So when we know the distinction between these two, one is focusing more on explanatory, it's explanatory power, which is a macroeconometric model. The other one focuses more on precision, adequacy, the accuracy with which it predicts. So what's now the motivation for this presentation? We are motivated by the fact that macroeconometrics provides structure and interpretability. Machine learning provides flexibility and predictive accuracy. What can these two be merged together in a way that it will improve prediction or understanding the macroeconometric or macroeconomic fundamentals. So the key argument is this: the future lies in integrating macroeconometric methods and artificial intelligence into a hybrid kind of framework. So what does it mean for us to integrate macroeconometrics and machine learning together? Okay, so integrating macroeconometrics and machine learning seeks to combine the strengths of these two approaches. We have already looked at their strengths and we have their weaknesses. So the concept of integration here is looking at how their strengths, because where one has a weakness appears to be the strength of the other. So if we merge the two, the strengths of the two, possibly we can have improvement in the understanding of the economic relationship, as well as having precision in terms of the prediction of the economic variable of interest. So econometrics will provide theoretical structure and causal interpretation. Machine learning will enhance the flexibility and predictive performance. So we need to combine these two. Machine learning can help to transform unstructured data. For macroeconometric models, which is cannot or falls short when it comes to handling machine learning helps to transform unstructured data, which may not be easily incorporated by macroeconometric models. Okay, so data such as images can now be converted into structured variable and then incorporated into the macroeconometric models. Now, another concept under machine learning is the cross-validation concept, which provides a systematic way to evaluate model performance. And on the basis of that, the information that is drawn from this cross-validation exercise can be used to further provide some improvements to our traditional econometric models. Now, what is the strategies that we can adopt to combine the two? Okay, the first one, we can combine the two by way of variable selection. Now, in the advent of more of several of the big data era, we have a problem of deciding what predictors are relevant to the particular economic variable of interest. So with machine learning, we may be able to use try to scout for relevant predictors from a very large data set. Okay, selected variables from this can therefore be included in our econometric model, thereby improving the efficiency and interpretability. Before the era of machine learning incorporation in macroeconometric modeling, usually researchers would have just scouted, you look through literature to look at possible predictors. That would have taken quite a large number of time or an effort to be able to gather relevant predictors. But with the advent of machine learning, the search for predictors, relevant predictors, is now made easily. So machine learning will provide that ease of searching for relevant predictors, which can then be incorporated into our econometric model to improve the efficiency and then interpretability, which is the strong point of macroeconometric model. Now, the second strategy for combining the two is methodological enhancement. So we can look at how we can consider the techniques from econometrics or macroeconometrics, such as handling endogeneity and model identification, and improve machine learning methods. Likewise, we can look at machine learning tools like cross-validation and how it can strengthen econometric analysis, vice versa. You look at the techniques from the two sides and see what can be adopted from each to improve the other. Another strategy for combining both approaches relies on the joint application. So both methods can be applied to the same problem from different perspectives. Okay, we apply side by side. You do machine learning for the same problem, you also use the macroeconometric perspective to view the same problem. So machine learning will help us to generate new variables through text analysis and clustering. There are several researches now on sentiment analysis, data scraping, okay, data mining. Some of these things can now, the information that are garnered from these different machine learning approaches can be introduced into macroeconometric models for causal analysis. Then you have another way, which happens to be the sequential modeling. So the sequential modeling means we take it one at a time. Okay, so we use ML, okay, for exploratory tool to detect pattern, which then guides the specification of the econometric model. Sometimes we have some form of non-linearity or some form of relationships that are not easily captured by our linear specification. So, but with machine learning, we can identify such pattern, look at how best to incorporate those patterns into our macroeconometric model specification, thereby improving the macroeconometric model output. Now, in complex system, machine learning may operate within components of larger econometric framework. So it is, you have a way of intertwining this, but the general idea is that we take from the strong points of one particular the one approach and use it to augment the other approach. If we look at the strong points of machine learning, we take the strong points of machine learning to augment the weakness of the macroeconometric models. Now, what is the benefit of integrating these two approaches? Now, the first one, it allows the use of both structured and unstructured data. So previously, if I was working as a macroeconometric modeler and I had need for a particular data, and that data is not readily available in structured form, okay? But with an exposition into machine learning or AI approach, I can be able to take from the concept of data mining or sentiment analysis to be able to get information about a particular concept. That concept sometimes may be latent. That concept may be something that is not observed on a regular basis or in a structured data form. So with machine learning, I'm able to tease out information, extract information from an unstructured data, and then incorporate it in my macroeconometric model. And that will enrich the analysis because I have more information from a source that before the advent of machine learning may not have been incorporated into my machine learning, into my macroeconometric model specification. Now, another benefit is that it enhances the ability to address endogeneity, especially when traditional instruments are weak. This is one concept that comes that is very, very critical. When we are doing macroeconometric modeling, we often encounter the problem of endogeneity. And one way of addressing endogeneity is to look for instruments.
Sorry,
but
Dr. Ogbonna, sorry, you have
Yes.
5 minutes more.
Okay, almost rounding up. The process of getting the reliable instrumental variables is sometimes very hectic. But with machine learning, you have that already taken care of because of the ease with which the algorithm can search for possible other variables that can serve as instruments, thereby strengthening our macroeconomic modeling framework. Advanced techniques such as deep learning can also uncover complex relationships. Yes, machine learning already has been shown in literature to capture non-linearity better than most macroeconomic variables. So it therefore means that we can draw from that strength of an approach that can handle non-linearity and infuse it into a macroeconomic model to able to capture the non-linearity and better represent the reality of the real world phenomenon. Macroeconomic metrics can in turn improve ML by providing theoretical guidance so that we can be able to give some level of interpretation to whatever that the results of our models bring. Okay, so macroeconometrics helps provide theoretical guidance. So while machine learning will provide flexibility and precision. So when we look at recent studies, you will see that there is a kind of introduction of out of sample validation and predictive technique, even a macroeconometric model, which shows that that already is being taken into cognizance, that there is a need to go beyond just saying there's the variables in my model actually explain this macroeconomic variable to a large extent. We want to go beyond that to say, yes, we have looked at it within the period where we have data, is able to explain it. But outside that period, can we still have a good prediction? Can we have some level of precision in terms of that? So what are the challenges that one is likely to face with respect to this integration? Now, the one is data inconsistency. So we must, before you can do integration, you must understand the data types, okay, and try to balance the data inconsistencies. Models that are trained on past data usually may fail if future data do not follow the same pattern. So that is another shortfall, a challenge, so which we have to look at. And also in machine learning, that's why you have your training sample, your test sample, and your validation sample. So that by the time you try to train the model and test the model, if you see some discrepancies, you have the chance of fine-tuning that model to give a better precision. At least that will take care of that. Now, validation of theory is another challenge, okay, which we may encounter when we are combining these two, because already machine learning is not theoretical based. It is macroeconometric model that are theoretical based. So if that theoretical assumption, by the time you are incorporating or integrating the two, your theoretical assumption is no longer valid, what now happens? So it therefore may lead to macroeconomic model performing poorly. So what will the researcher now result to? So those are some of the questions one will have to look at. And then you have machine learning can help identify patterns in such situations, but interpretation may remain difficult. So that will now require the expertise of the researcher to think it through, okay, while integrating your machine learning into your macroeconometric model, what the outcome, what economic interpretation, what economic implications can be drawn from it. And then the main thing is balancing predictive performance with explanatory clarity. You know, this is coming from the two approaches. So one of the challenges will be to balance when we have quite a good percentage of explanation of the dynamics. We also want to see that we have quite a reasonable precision in our predictive performance. Okay, so practical consideration. To effectively combine both, researchers must develop strong skills in the two areas, macroeconometric model and machine learning algorithm. So once you understand this, you have developed skills in this, so it now relies on you to now be able to understand the problem, the data, and which method will be appropriate. Will it be more convenient, or will it be more appropriate to use macroeconometric or machine learning, or the combination of the two? But from what we are discussing currently, we want to look at how we can incorporate the strengths of the two to have something more realistic and something that gives us a high precision. Model evaluation should align with the research objective, whether it is explanation or prediction or both. So domain knowledge plays a very key role. So in conclusion, both of them should be seen as complementary rather than competing approaches, because they both have their strengths and their weaknesses. So they should be considered on a complementary stance. Now, the integration will allow researchers to tackle more complex problems effectively. Okay? The key is not to choose between them, but to understand how and when to use each method. By combining rigorous theory with advanced computational tools from machine learning, researchers can achieve both accurate prediction as well as meaningful explanation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogbonna, for that great and wonderful presentation. I think you have loaded us with so many things, and I'm sure some of us are still trying to digest. Sorry, I hope you can all hear me. I had to switch to another device. I don't know. Please, can anyone confirm that?
We can hear you, sir.
Oh, great. So, yes. Oh, great. So, I'm sure we are also trying to digest so many things. Things you have mentioned. So, I think it's now time. We don't wait so much time because we have about 15 minutes more. So, we'd like to entertain questions. For those anyone who, if you have questions, please can quickly unmute your device. Ask your question, right? Please, if you have questions, let's go ahead. But Dr. Ogbonna, I just want to ask, although in the way you've explained, you have tried to answer that question that I had, which is one of the main challenge of the use of machine learning, which is interpretability of the results. And I think you explained that it is best combined or complemented by macroeconomic model, right? And so it means that machine learning on its own cannot stand. You cannot make use of machine learning on its own, but rather you complement it with the use of econometric model. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Because most times, when we do macroeconometric modeling, the end point is usually to be able to advise policymakers. Okay, so if you do macroeconomic modeling, you have theory as the background to which guides the variables we want to consider, and then the interpretability after we have estimated. But from machine learning, we are not even concerned about the theory. So that's why on its own, machine learning, it may give us some idea about variables that could be likely predictors, but the interpretation is now a bit complex, or in a way, can we say, is hidden, because of we don't understand the workings behind the black box. So since machine learning is based on black box method, there is some level of not clarity about that causal relationship. So if we want to look at causal relationship, but also have some level of precision, then we can borrow from that flexibility and precision capability of machine learning and incorporate it into a theory-based method, so that by the time we are able to improve the precision, the theory-based method gives us a better explanatory stance, and then a better stance for interpretability. Because in the end, when we want to interpret, we always link it back to theory.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ogbonna. So I think I can see Idris Adediran.
Oh yes. Good day, everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, for my hand here, it's past afternoon. All right, so thank you very much, the speaker, Dr. Ogbonna Ephraim. I want to appreciate you for this wonderful presentation, and then appreciate our professors over there for putting this together. I think it's very engaging. So AI is here to stay, no doubt about that. In fact, there is no way I would have been working on the project I'm working on currently without AI machine learning, because of some data that are not available. And then I can easily do text mining and all of that. So So that is to buttress some of your points. All right, so I just want us to look at one area, just one area, especially where you stopped, the area of theory. You see, you are statisticians, mathematicians, you have the tools. So just like econometrics is also a tool. So, and then you have also highlighted that as well. We can't really do anything meaningful without theory, without whatever we are doing being grounded in theory in economics. So I want to suggest, rather than looking for a way to integrate machine learning into econometrics, why not integrate it into economics? What do I mean? Just give us an example. For example, you want to train your data. What are you training your data on, or what are you training it with? Say, for instance, I want to train my stocks data. Stocks, rather than just allow the system to determine the what do we call it, to train the data. Why not let it be theory based? Say, for example, I'll train it on the current war in Iran, and see, say for instance, it is oil price data. Train it on the current war in Iran, or the one currently going on in. So just using that as an example, that say starting from how to train our data, let it be theory based, let it be grounded in theory, in economics, so that this tool, which is machine learning, will be what is the word? Will be attractive to economists. So let me just stop here. So in other words, my own idea is we should not be looking for how to fuse machine learning and econometrics, rather than integrate machine learning into economics. Thank you very much once again for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Idris. I think Moyibuki Iwale, I think your hand is raised up. Please, over to you.
Thank you so much. I believe everyone can hear
you
me.
only have just not more than a minute. Then after you, we'll have Mohammed.
Okay.
Tahir
No
Mohammed,
problem.
please. Yeah.
No problem. So thank you so much, Dr. Ogbonna Ephraim. Your teaching is really educative, and I've learned so much. But I just want to get clarification, and from our theory in some of the theories in econometrics, I know that we have some assumptions when estimating models and some statistical criteria that should be met. For instance, when dealing with time series data, we have the concept of stationarity, unit root test, and the likes. And even when you want to forecast using some of our models like ARIMA, as posited by Box Jenkins, we have some of the criteria that we have to meet, about, I think about 4 of them. So I want to know, in combining both the macroeconometrics, the traditional one, and your machine learning, I want to know if you also consider all these conditional criteria that are already embedded in the traditional macroeconomic theory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
So
thank you, Dr. Ogbonna. Hold on, please.
Okay.
Let Mohammed Tahir take ease. Then you can please answer all. Then we can now go for another round. Yes, over to you, Mohammed. Please unmute your device and quickly. You have 30 seconds, please. Thank you. Okay, well, I think you can go ahead and respond, Dr. Ogbonna. Mohammed, please, maybe you can prepare to unmute. Okay, are you ready now, Mohammed Tahir? Mohammed Tahir, if you are ready, please go ahead. We can't hear you. Okay, Dr. Ogbonna, please, you can respond, please. Thank you.
Okay, so like the last speaker mentioned, we are not throwing away all the properties of our macroeconomic model. Like you were even talking about time series model, like the example you mentioned, ARIMA. Now, in the course of this lecture, I also mentioned that when you even estimate, by the time you are conducting your ARIMA, you're estimating your ARIMA model. Usually, we have, if you have done that previously, if you take your model and you have a data period that you have considered, you will see that by the time you try to predict in sample, you are likely to have a model that performs very well within the period of the data you use for your estimation. But try to look at periods that are outside the period considered for your estimation. You will find out that the model will no longer perform as well as it did within the in sample. So it means that in a way, while under the data sample you have considered, you have established quite a reasonable explanatory power of the variable you considered. In ARIMA now, you are saying, considering the lagged, the autoregressive lag and the moving average lagged in your model is sufficient to explain the dynamics of that time series. But that was already based on the period you have data for. Outside that period, will that performance still remain? So it now help looking at the machine learning algorithm that takes a more direct approach to focus more on getting enhanced or predictions rather than explanatory power. So looking at that instance, we now want to say, okay, since this particular machine learning can give us higher precision, why not borrow from these concepts and infuse into the existing model, your time series model, to improve it? I give an example. There is sometimes when we do, especially like this simultaneous equation model, we have tried a particular exercise wherein we had a forward and backward looking kind of specification. And then previously in the traditional approach, we usually use Hodrick-Prescott to generate our expectations. But we now also looked at a way whereby expectations will be generated using machine learning approach. And we were able to find out that the method that adopts that the machine learning approach to generate expectations, we now incorporate that expectation generated from machine learning into our macroeconometric model in place of the expectation generated by Hodrick-Prescott, the conventional method. And we compared the two. We saw that the precision improved when we included the expectations generated from machine learning approach compared to that of Hodrick-Prescott. So we are not entirely throwing off what all the tests, the transformations that you have under the macroeconometric model framework. We are only saying with that, let's there be a kind of support or additional information that before now will not be able to be captured in macroeconometric model. But since machine learning can provide such information and can transform such unstructured data into structured form, we can draw from that advantage and improve improve the information that is provided for our macroeconometric model to be able to perform better. So in terms of performance, you have a higher explanatory power as well as high precision.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ogbonna, for yet another, clear explanation. I don't know if Mohammed Tari, are you still there? Would you still want to ask your question? Or if there is anyone who has questions, comments, please. Okay, Sahid Adiremi, please, over to you. Unmute your device and go ahead within 20 seconds, please. Thank you. Said Adiremi, we can't hear you. I don't know if you are speaking. You raised your hand up. Was it a mistake or not? So that you can unmute your device if you want to ask a question. Please, anyone, if you have any question, please, you do not need, Manager, please, over to you. Manager Nathaniel, please unmute your device and quickly ask your question or make a contribution.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. I want to say thank you first and foremost. Going straight to my question, I want to understand something regarding model specification, and particularly is about talking about transforming a linear model to a non-linear model. I came across an equation sometime in the course of my academic work, where you have a model, like the functional form of a model being expressed as raised to having a superscript.
Okay.
Like the variables now have superscript.
Okay.
You know, then it's coming down to the mathematical form of the model, and it's now expressed different from. So I just want to get a clarification, more understanding about such transformation in the course of model specification. And apart from that, and again, the second aspect is, if, for instance, the variables in the functional form are not in superscript, they are not in superscript, but in the mathematical form, you now have the parameters, parameters attached to the constant parameters attached to the variables. Is that correct? Is this supposed to be like that? For the fact that the functional form originally do not have superscript. So I need a clarification on this. Thank you.
From your functional form already, the first one, the functional form, or from your theory, there seems to be a functional form that suggests that it is non-linear. And usually when we model such kind of relationship, we have to do some level of transformation. When we want to use our conventional macroeconometric models, we may want to transform. And prominently, if I understand what you have tried to put across, you have the prominently used transformation technique, which is the logarithmic transformation. Sometimes by the time you transform using log transformation, you have the specification to now be linear, and then we can apply our normal linear regression or normal macroeconometric model estimation tools. So transforming your non-linear to a linear form, and then applying your macroeconometric models, means that you will also be conscious of the fact that the variables are now transformed. So you have to take that into cognizance. So you are no longer going to be interpreting on the basis of the original form in which it was presented, but now in its transformed state. Now, but in the other instance, you are saying now your functional form does not show any form of non-linearity, but the mathematical form is now having raised to power. I'm not sure how that comes to be, because we are moving from your theoretical background, the theory underlying the relationship between those variables of interest, and then you are moving from that particular theoretical specification to a mathematical specification. So it can move from non-linear, and then through linearization, we have a linear model. And then we interpret on the basis of the transformed variables, or better still. But for machine learning, we are not even now interested in that those relationships, those causal relationships, but rather, is there a way we can be able to model that non-linearity that you have observed, even in the variable of interest. So machine learning gives you that upper hand to be able to capture non-linearity more realistically than the macro model. So in the macro model, we may want to transform, but under machine learning, we want to make use of the data and then extract as much information as possible that will aid the prediction, okay, of that economic phenomenon.
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Ogbonna.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there's so much to explain, and time is a constraint in our modeling. Time is always a constraint, and we wish we can actually exceed. Okay, we still have two people, so I think we'll just do 2 minutes more. Please, just bear with us. But on the interim, please. NAMM is open to membership. If you are interested in joining NAMM, please, you can look at the chat box or go onto our website. Just there's a link clear on how you can join. Where to give you an opportunity to interact more with modelers and other colleagues. So please, you are all welcome to join. So, Said Adiremi, I think your hand is raised up. And Paulinus, either of you can quickly unmute. You have 10 seconds. Ask your question quickly so that Dr. Ogbonna can respond, and we can close in the next 2 minutes max. Thank you. Yes, Paulinus, over to you.
So thank you very much. I've listened very attentively to your presentation, sir. And well, for me, I'm in industry. I'm not fully in academics, so I've quite understood the aspect of how we can integrate AI and machine learning into econometrics. But I'm looking at bringing this into real life situation, right? So apart from just modeling for academic, maybe either forecasting or prediction, but for example, I am in an industry where we actually carry out rigorous risk assessments before, to be able to select the right maybe right clients or right person to audit, right? So I'm talking about from the regulatory point of view now. So I'm looking at how do you bring this to that practical reality where you have a large amount of people to cover, and then you want to then apply some risk indicators. How do you then bring in this issue of AI? So do we have a situation where we can build this into real life modeling that can be implemented in certain industries like this? So I mean, yeah, practically speaking,
there are several concepts that can be actually looked at. Okay, so when dealing with industry, you are already talking about data, large data, big data. Okay, so you are looking at a large number of clients, and then they have some characteristics. Now, these characteristics before now may not have any, there may not be any theoretical underlying theory to actually look at this the situation of things with respect to your clients. Okay, but we can look at how the behavioral pattern of these clients over the large number of clients over the time period or the data sample that you have, and you are able to now train models. That's the AI version, AI part of it. You are able to train a train model to be able to recognize some features, because different clients will come up with their different characteristics, and these characteristics will be diverse across the clients. So if I had just 10 clients, it would have quite been easy to easily look at these 10 clients and be able to say, okay, look at the characteristics. But when you are now having such large amount of clients, you're having big data, you cannot no longer look at this from the surface view. You can now employ the machine learning algorithm. One very critical or very important application area that relates to what you have just said is in the fraud analytics, okay, where you are looking at the anomaly that could occur when dealing with different clients. There are different characteristics. So you will need a model, okay, that understands the dynamics of different that can come up from the different clients, such that even outside the sample that you have, okay, you can be able to predict that if you come across a new client entirely that has some particular features, you can be able to say what that client is capable of doing with respect to your own area in the industry. So yes, you can actually incorporate data analytics with respect to fraud, with respect to anomaly detection. You know, sometimes you look at banks and you start wondering, how do banks decide who to give loan to? And then when you look at some data that has been collected over time, okay, about their customers, you have those that have collected loan at one point in time and have defaulted, those that collected and did not default, those that collected, they paid up to a point and thereafter they vanished. They will have different characteristics. Is there a particular macroeconomic model that will capture this at one glance? No, but machine learning provides that platform, and that's why we say machine learning is flexible and it targets more of prediction. So this that concept can now be looked at to generate information about how clients are likely to behave. That information can be modeled. Okay, that information, if you were doing a kind of a causal relationship, okay, looking at the characteristics, you can extract that information using machine learning and incorporate in your econometric model to see, okay, does this particular concept that I have extracted from my machine learning algorithm, do they provide some form of explanation as to why clients behave the way they behave? So in that way, you have integrated the two. So machine learning, again, will help you classify, okay, when you are classifying clients into different subcategories, okay, with customers that are likely to behave in a particular manner have some characteristics that is common across them. So machine learning will help you to be able to do that. So you can incorporate that information in an explanatory model to also now see whether that information gives some level of explanation as to why those clients behave the way they behave.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ogbonna, for the wonderful. Oh, excuse me, please.
Sorry.
Excuse me. For your responses, for your explanation on to the questions that were asked. And we would certainly like to thank every one of you for joining. We still have about 32 people, over 32 people on this call, and I think it shows how much of interest and how much of engagement we have had and how much we have learned. So, and I think the discussion continues; it doesn't end here. And we encourage you all to maybe check our website. For those of you that are not members, we encourage you to go to NAMM's website. Just Google NAMM, namm.org.ng. You can join, and for next month's webinar, you would also get information on the details of when and what the topic would be. I would like to thank you all again for joining. We thank Dr. Ogbonna for your time and for the careful and for the detailed way by which you have made your presentation. Okay, I can see somebody asking for recordings. Well, I think you can just do us. You can send an email, and then we can take it up from there. Yes. So, and we can take it up from there. So, but I'd like to thank everyone. We thank the president and president and of NAMM, Professor Olusoyin Olubusoye, for initiating this webinar series. And we thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you all, and we wish you a good rest of your day. Once again, Dr. Ogbonna, thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, bye.
Prof,
That was a good one. An excellent one.
Thank you, my professor from OAU. We have our colleague also with you, Professor Adeboye from an economist.
Okay. That's interesting.
I'm sure you know him.
I'm not sure now.
He's on Discord. He's on Discord, yes.
That's interesting.
We love to have you too. We need people like you. Professor Abiodun Adeboye. I think you can. Yeah.
Link up with. Okay, that's fine. All right, I'll do that. Thank you, Gani.
It's been a while. As if.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, I came a bit late for this webinar.
Oh wow!
But the later part that I attended was quite interesting and fantastic. Our guest is a super